how to buy a house. Basically, in this video, rather, I'm going to talk about the different steps involved in buying a house. In this video, I'll go through the different steps, talk more about each step, what it includes, a little bit more detail, and then in subsequent videos, we'll talk more about, real estate wholesaling and how to become a real estate agent, and things like that. So, so what are the steps, right? So what are the steps if you want to buy a house? You're ready to make that jump. You've saved up enough money for the closing costs and the down payment, and you're ready to go ahead and jump in. So what do you do? Well, first you have to get a pre-qual letter, a pre-qualification letter or pre-approval letter from your lender. Now, whether this is your bank, your credit union, or you go through a mortgage broker, you'll have to go through that individual or business to get that pre-qual letter. And what they basically will do is they'll capture all your information. They will process an application, a mortgage application. If you're going through a mortgage broker, it's called a 1003 form. And what they'll do is they'll get your information, your basic information. They'll pull your credit and get your income, how much you're making, how much you have saved up, all this information, and then they will get a pre-qualification based off of that info. And what that means is that they'll be able to determine based on your income, your credit, and how much you have saved up, how much you qualify for a mortgage. So, for example, they'll tell you based on your income and your credit, you qualify for up to a mortgage for a house that is worth 300 or for a sales price of $300,000, for example, right? So you take this letter and this information, now you can go out there and start looking for a house. Okay. This is a very important step because one, you'll need this to know how much you qualify for so that you go out there and start searching for the right house, so that you're not looking for a house you don't even qualify for, that's way over your budget. And number two, when you do find a house, this is a required step. You have to provide this letter in order for you to either submit an offer. So we'll talk more about that in the next steps. So once you have this letter, what do you do next? Well, you have to go hire a real estate agent. Again, real estate agent is a very useful person, resource to hire, especially as a buyer. So I'll explain why that is in detail. But let me just tell you what the real estate agent does in this buying process. When you hire a real estate agent, that agent is responsible in helping you find a home. And they don't get paid until you find a home and you close on that home, right? And when you, and even then, you don't pay them out of your pocket. Now, there are unusual circumstances where you can negotiate this if you need to, but it makes, that's rarely happens. And if you do that, there has to be a very, like I said, a very unusual circumstance. Typically, 99% of the time, a buyer's real estate agent is paid by the seller, right? The seller's agent will split their commission in most states, including Texas. Typically, 6% is the average for a real estate agent, how much they get commission out of the sales price. And what they end up doing is the seller's real estate agent will split that commission with the buyer's agent, and they will pay them. So this is something that does not come out of your pocket. Technically, the seller pays your agent's commission. So hire an agent, very important, and the right agent will find you a great house and will work for you. Again, they work for commission, so they have an incentive to find you a house that you like and that you can close on. So once you found an agent, what do you do next? Well, you start looking for a house, right? Your agent will bring you all the listed houses on MLS, and you go with them, start looking at properties, walking the properties, and seeing what house you like. And then once you finally find a house, then you make an offer, right? And I can go and I can make a video actually detailing, it's at least in Texas, what an offer letter looks like, what a sales contract looks like, and give you the different sections so that you can get an understanding how to read it and how to fill it out. If you have an agent, the agent will do all this work for you. That's the benefit of having a real estate agent when you're buying a house. They'll do all this for you, and all you have to do is review it and sign it. But you have to know what that offer letter looks like and what the sales contract looks like in the different sections so that you're not missing any important information. And another thing I always advise people is speak to an attorney. This is a big purchase. For most people, this is the biggest purchase that they'll ever make in their life. So it's very important that you speak to an attorney, have them review it. But if you don't have, money or you don't want to spend that extra amount of money for an attorney, then it's very important that you learn how to review a contract and understand it so that you're not signing, your life away, so to speak. And it's a terrible contract where, it's going to hurt you in the long run. So you make the offer, in this market, it's a much better market than it was last year and the years before, last few years, where it was a seller's market. But in this market, you make an offer, whether it's lower, or the exact sales price. The seller will review your offer. Typically, your buyer's agent, your agent will submit it to the seller's agent. The seller's agent will take that to their buyer, or to their seller rather. They'll review it, and then they'll come back with an answer. And it's typically one of three things: either they accept your offer as it is, or B, they counter what their counter offer, and or C, the third option is they just flat out reject it. Depending on the type of market that we're in, it will depend on which of those three responses you get. In the last 3 years, I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of rejections. Sellers, it was a seller's market. The sellers were having a pick of the litter, and they were controlling the transaction completely. Now that it's normalized and things are changing, it's more becoming a buyer's market. So a buyer can make a low ball offer and get some kind of counter offer from the seller. So it's a much better market now than it is. But we'll discuss more of that in a different video. So what happens next? The offer gets accepted. Well, you execute the contract, which means it's duly signed by the seller and the buyer. And now you can proceed into going through the closing process, right? In order for you to get to closing, you have to submit this executed contract to your lender and all additional documentation to your lender. So what does your lender do? They'll collect all of your W-2s if they haven't already collected, your pay stubs, your bank statements, and they will ask you a whole host of things that they require from you. In addition to that, they will also order an appraisal of the property so that they can get an official assessment of the value of the property, and they'll start working on that. Typically, this process takes about 30 days. It can be shorter, it can be longer. It all depends on, what type of borrower you are, and if there's any complications with your documentations or any verifications with your job. This is the underwriting process. In this process, during this time as well, you will need to order a home inspection. It's not required, but it's highly, highly recommended. Anytime you purchase a property, you want to have a home inspection done. This will help you catch any issues with the property before you buy it. If you miss something and you end up buying a house with the major issues, you're stuck with that issue, and you can end up having to pay thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to remedy the situation. So it's very important that you order a home inspection. They typically run about $400 to $500 depending on the market, but it's worth it. And this will be another item that's going to come out of your pocket. You have to pay that. You have to order that yourself. Once the lender gives you the final clear to close, and once you're satisfied with the home inspection results, now you're ready to move on. Another step during this process that you will need to do is you'll need to purchase, you'll need to shop for a property insurance, homeowners insurance, and get that situated before closing. It's very important that you do that in preparation for closing. Once all of that is completed, now you're ready to go to closing. Closing will happen at a title company. And this is something that a third party that you need to be aware of. A title company is the company that facilitates the closing or the transaction of a real estate. Some states allow attorneys to perform this task. The title company's responsibility is to do a title search whenever there is a contract executed. They perform a title search to make sure there is no encumbrance or any issues with the title that will prevent the deal from happening. And number two, they are the ones who facilitate the transaction, the money going from the buyer to the seller. So at closing, you typically go to the title company, or they'll send someone to you, a notary, if you live in a state that allows that, to sign the documents. And once these documents have been signed at closing, the keys will be exchanged and you're officially the owner of the new property. Congratulations, you're now a homeowner. This, guys, is the basic process for buying a property. Now, we'll talk more about this. This is typically how you would go to purchase a house using a lender. This applies for a retail buyer, meaning you're buying this property for yourself, or even if you're buying it as an investment property, you typically go through the same process. But we will talk more about the different loan programs, the different types of loans that exist, and I'll talk more about how to buy a property as an investor. And then in another video, I'll discuss how to become a real estate wholesaler, which is a whole different topic. And then I'll also cover, if you're interested in becoming a real estate agent, what does that entail and what steps you need to take to become one. All right, guys. Thank you again. Subscribe, like. Until next time.